Hello, everyone. We are here today with George Pitagorsky. He's a connection of mine through LinkedIn, but also he is part of the project management community, which I have a large audience in and have had some experience myself. So I wanted to take the opportunity today to get to know him a little bit more and introduce him to you. So with that, George, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm George Pitagorsky. I live in New York City, and I've been in a career that has spanned several decades, but more importantly, it's spanned the software development, enterprise change world, project management, several years as an instructional design, development, and training person, particularly in a focus on project management. And currently I'm operating as the Chief Information Officer for a fairly large segment of the New York City Department of Education. Not the learning part of it, but the support services, which deals with food, busing, and sports programs, a multi-billion-dollar operation. So that's on kind of the business organizational side of my life, and the other side of my life is 40 some odd years as a yogi, meditator, and over the last 20 years teaching meditation and Eastern wisdom tradition in and around New York, but also traveling with respect to that. And my focus is on how to integrate those two things. So the teaching that I do is about relationships and how one can develop relationships through the use of mindfulness and wisdom teaching, and then how do you apply that in daily life in the context of organizations or couples or what have you. So I'm an old guy. I'm 76 years old. I was born in Brooklyn and lived by the beach until my parents had this crazy idea of moving to the suburbs, and since then I've grown up in and around the New York City area, and currently live in Manhattan in a high-rise, and I'm looking out over a nice, expansive view of the world.
Nice. Well, it's very nice to meet you. So tell me a little bit about your story. You said, your passions are, mindfulness. You're a yogi. You also have a lot of business experience. So how did you get into those two areas, and how do they blend?
Okay, so I started out after college going into a job as a computer programmer, and very quickly became an entrepreneur as part of the startup of a software development, software design group. And we grew the group from 1968 through 75 when I left into a fairly substantial company. In the early 70s, late 60s, I started to become involved with yoga, and a particular brand of yoga called Kundalini Yoga. And very rigorous, very combination of different kinds of spiritual practices, including very, very strong hatha yoga. And that led me into a whole realm of interesting stuff. So by 1975, dropped out of my company. I sold my interest in it, and then took my family, which at that time had 2 young children, and my wife, who came along kicking and screaming, as we kind of took to the hippie trail in the United States. So we bought a van, we went cross country, spent several months crisscrossing the Southwest primarily, and then the following year I took the opportunity to take 6 weeks at something called Naropa Institute, which was and it continues to be a university dedicated to Buddhist study. And after that couple of years, I realized that hippiedom and living on the road was not for me, so I decided to get back into the world of business and organizations. So I went back to my old company and started up a learning systems division, and we started to develop technical courses and some soft skill courses. And this is back in the late 1970s. And so that led to moving on to a private consulting practice. So I became an independent consultant after starting that division up. And in that context, I focused heavily on project management and organizational change management, and also took on some management of relatively large, complex projects in the financial industry, which was a background that I came to through the software design and development organization. So that lasted until the 1990s, when I came in contact with a learning organization that specialized in project management. They took me on still as a consultant, but I became the managing director of their product development activity and one of the thought leaders in that environment, and developed both instructor-led and computer-based training in project management, as well as business analysis and things like that. That lasted until the 2008 decline of the economy, when the training industry went into the Great Recession. And at the same time, I came across this opportunity to go in as a consultant with the Department of Education, which this division that I'm involved with now had the desire to move more quickly into the 21st century than they had been moving. So my role there began as an enterprise architect and consultant, and then after several years, they asked me to come on board as the Chief Information Officer for this group. So the two things kind of intertwined with one another, because once I returned from my hiatus as a hippie, I still kept up my practices and cultivated more and more of a coaching and teaching practice in the area of mindfulness meditation and the integration of mindfulness meditation into the daily life. So myself and a teaching partner developed a course called Conscious Living, Conscious Working, which is a 5-month program to give people the ability to take these practices and bring them into their daily life. And that's been regularly taught for 15 years now. And then in addition to that, I developed some courses in relationship management, relationship skills, mindfulness-based relationship skills, as well as some other courses that are more esoteric in the area of Buddhism.
Great. So talk to me a little bit more about, this idea of mindfulness and how does it integrate with work? Like, how do you blend the two? What's the advice you would give for someone who is interested in it, I guess?
Right. Yeah, so mindfulness is mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness in and of itself is a capability, a mental capability that has to do with the observation of whatever it is that's occurring. And more specifically, the objective observation. And everybody is mindful to some degree or another. The mindfulness meditation practice enhances one's ability to be present and mindfully aware of whatever is occurring in and around oneself. And that capability leads to a set of insights into the nature of one's own operation, one's mind, as well as the nature of things in general. So by observing what's going on, one sees that there's a significant amount of change and impermanence. There's a significant amount of things that are going on that are not to one's liking necessarily. And then there's the constancy of process and movement, leading to the notion that there's nothing that's solid. Now, that is a set of information and practices that is on an individual level. It it leads to, and there's a tremendous amount of literature on it, a big movement towards mindfulness-based stress reduction and so forth. A side effect of this practice is the reduction of stress and the ability to be more emotionally intelligent, more socially intelligent, because when one is not being reactive to one's mind and to all of the various impulses that come up, one has the ability to be more engaging, more compassionate, more loving and kind, and accepting of other people. And that's pretty much where the integration into daily life comes into play. It's arguable that relationship is is kind of the bedrock foundation for all of our lives. You know, whether they're in organizations, families, communities, etc. So if I can now generate a greater degree of mindfulness, calm myself down, become less reactive, then I'm going to be able to operate more effectively in the world. How do I do that? Well, I, in effect, learn to practice mindfulness meditation, which can be done in a number of different ways, very formally, very informally, a lot of different possibilities there. And then I cultivate that capability and bring to it some wisdom teaching. You know, what have the philosophers, what have the great thinkers been telling us over the last several centuries, if not longer, about the way that we can live more effectively in the world. Bringing mindfulness together with that degree of wisdom now changes the whole context of one's life.
Yeah, definitely, and it's really inspirational. So, what stories do you have, maybe from your own life, or people that you've worked with, where you've seen this kind of transformation, and how has it benefited?
Well, just one example. Let's say an individual has some anger management problems. I just worked with myself and others in the world of technology, where you've got very highly intelligent people, super capable, but have absolutely no patience with anyone that's not as intelligent as they are. You should run into people like this, yes? So,
yes, definitely. Of course.
Yeah. So by working with a person like that, by teaching them the capacity to sit back and observe his own inner feelings, his own inner process, and not have to express the frustration and the anger, but instead cultivate the capacity to sit with it, and then having been able to kind of hold back the explosiveness of the frustration, choose what to do next. So I've worked with people who have moved from the inability to simply sit in a meeting and not express people violence, but explosive thoughts and their frustration, and who have now been able to operate as not only an observer, but an observer who is now able to facilitate the meeting, even if he or she is not the leader of that meeting. So that ability, the project manager to not get caught up in their fears is another aspect of it. In project management work, what often happens is that there's a set of deadlines or budget that has to be that one has to fit into, and because of a fear of failure, one is starting to make decisions that are not skillful. For example, putting out a product that doesn't really work, that hasn't really been fully tested in order to meet a deadline. So by learning how to, again, sit with the feeling of this anxiety and this fear of failure and so forth, and step back and say, okay, what's my best option here? One has the ability to be more successful. So I've written a couple of books to bring these things into the context of book, a business project. One of them is called the Zen approach to project management. And in that book, I'm basically teaching how, or giving people the ability to use mindfulness meditation and what we call the Zen approach to again, be more capable of responsiveness as opposed to reactivity. Then my second book is a book on conflict management, which deals with the ability to enter into conflict, which is endemic in the world, and nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's a very useful thing if it's managed properly. And how do you manage it in a mindful way that brings in the various techniques of communication, problem solving, decision making, and so forth, melding those things together, get to that place where we can move more and more towards win-win solutions. At the same time, recognizing that sometimes you can't do that. You have to live with win-win situations. And then my third book adds on to that by bringing in the idea that managing expectations is a key to success, not only in projects, but in life in general. And in that book, I'm providing an approach to, again, engage mindfulness with a set of analytical tools and communication tools that will enable people to set realistic expectations, manage them through the course of a relationship or a project, and again, cultivate a greater probability of success.
Excellent. So if someone's listening today, sorry, my son's totally sitting here. If someone's listening today and they, want to learn a little bit more about this topic, first of all, where can they find your books, and where would you suggest they start?
Well, my books are available on Amazon. The easiest place probably to get them. George Pitagorsky, and I'm sure you'll put out the spelling. And the Zen approach to project management, managing conflict in projects, and managing expectations, mindfulness using mindfulness. So those three books can be obtained through Amazon or any of the other vehicles. One can just go on Google or Bing it. And so that's one way. I also publish a monthly newsletter called Breakthrough. The Breakthrough newsletter is available via my website, which is PitagorskyConsulting.com, and that provides 10, 12 years worth of articles on this kind of thing. In addition, through an organization that I called IAL that I have a relationship with, I published 3 YouTube videos on mindfulness meditation, meditation at your desk, and meditation on the way to work, walking and traveling type of meditation. So those are available there. And then there are probably 6,000 books by other people who are writing about mindfulness, meditation, and its application.
Excellent. That's awesome. We'll post all the links so that everyone can access your information. So we're getting to the end of our time. So if there was anything that you wanted to leave, the listeners with today, what would it be?
Well, it would be the message that I try to put out is to cultivate sufficient amount of presence of mind to be able to be responsive as opposed to reactive, and then to cultivate the motivation for that response to be integrated with a degree of compassion and loving kindness. And based on that, one can then apply and do whatever one needs to do, whatever it is in the environment.
Well, thank you very much for speaking with me today, George. It was great to get to know you a little bit more.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely.